They met for the reckoning in a glass-walled conference room, where winter light turned everything sterile and unforgiving. Across the frosted pane, Berlin's skyline smudged into a cold watercolor. "Mom, Dad," Lucas began, carefully measured like the financial models he lived in. "We've thought a lot about your situation, and we've made a decision." Ava's hands clasped the folder so tightly the polished nails paled. Noah avoided their eyes. Again, at 78 and 80, Elena and Thomas Brenner had slowed, yes, but not broken. Elena still volunteered twice a week at the local museum, and Thomas still drove with a military crispness that made other drivers more cautious. They were not perfect. They forgot a few appointments. They misplaced a bill and paid it the next day. They moved more gingerly after long walks. That was age, not incapacity. "You've become a liability," Ava said, the words slicing more than she seemed to realize. "The house needs repairs you can't manage. Mom, your arthritis is worsening. And Dad, last month, you took the wrong exit on the ring road. We've consulted with specialists who've never met us," Thomas said, voice even weathered by years that had made him careful with anger. "It's for your own good." Noah added, eyes on the table. "We've found a great assisted living residence. More independence than the usual sort. It's nice." Elena fought to keep her voice steady. "But our home," Lucas cut in. "We sold it." Those words fractured the room. For a few seconds the world ceased breathing. Elena felt the blood drain from her face. Thomas sat utterly still, the only movement, just a tight contraction along his jaw. "The closing is next Friday," Lucas continued, brisk in the way of those who cannot see the child within their mother. "The proceeds will cover care for about 7 years. After that, your pensions and Social Security should be enough. This is best. We can't risk." "You had no right," Thomas said, quietly, devastatingly. "We have every right," Ava countered. "You signed durable power of attorney and healthcare proxies last winter during the flu. Given your declining condition." "What declining condition?" Elena's voice rose, cracked by disbelief. "I curate, catalog, and lead tours. Your father fixes the boiler when it grumbles and changes our smoke detector batteries. We pay our bills, we keep our appointments." "Mom," Noah said, eyes pleading, "you forgot my birthday." "I sent a card," she said defensively. 3 weeks late," he answered. "And Dad, you couldn't remember my wife's name at Christmas dinner. Her name is Sophia," Thomas said, still returning. "I was distracted because you were criticizing our gift to your son." "This isn't productive," Lucas said. "The choice is made. Monday, you'll move into the residence. The movers will handle everything. You're allowed personal effects that fit into a standard room. The rest will be sold or donated." Under the table, Arlo, their graying German shepherd, had been lying still as a shadow. Suddenly he stood, a low growl trembling through the room toward Lucas. Lucas flinched. Old instincts flicker when confronted with presence. "Control the dog," Ava snapped. "This is exactly why animals aren't allowed at Lindenhof residence," Lucas added. Elena's breath caught. "What about Arlo? He's family. We found a senior dog rescue. He'll be in good hands," Noah said, but he wouldn't meet Arlo's eyes. Thomas stood, the chair's legs rasping. "No," he said. "This meeting is over. Elena, Arlo, we're leaving." "Dad," Lucas said sharply as they reached the door. "Don't make this harder if we have to involve the courts." Thomas turned, the old soldier rising like a mountain. "I served. I buried more loved ones than I care to remember. I worked 48 years with dignity. If you think I'll surrender my independence, my self-respect, or my dog without a fight, then you never knew me." They drove home in devastating silence. Elena's eyes shone but did not spill. She pinched the bridge of her nose as if she could hold grief there until it dissolved. Thomas navigated familiar streets on muscle memory, while his mind raked through options and found none. Arlo sat upright in the back seat, looking out the window sentinel. Their modest, vine-covered house rose like an ache. The place where Ava took her first steps on the oak floor. The kitchen where Lucas's volcano exploded bright orange goo. The living room where Noah practiced piano and missed the same F-sharp 3 times during Brahms. "I can't pack it all," Elena whispered. "Everything holds a life." Thomas stepped into his small office and pulled open the bottom drawer. "Elena," he called, voice controlled but buzzing with something new. "Do you remember the envelope?" The one Stefan sent before he died. She appeared in the doorway, wiping at her eyes. Stefan Moret, the friend you met in the Alps during conscription? That was... Oh, Thomas. 15 years ago, he found the envelope, a thick wax-sealed piece of old-world drama. With the Moret crest impressed into burgundy, he had never opened it. Stefan had been complicated. Born into wealth, turned toward shadow, then chose service for honor. Or perhaps absolution. They saved each other twice, lost contact, reconnected with soft edges. Then that envelope, followed by news of Stefan's death. Thomas broke the seal inside. A deed, and a letter yellowed with quiet years. Thomas unfolded the letter and read aloud. Thomas, old friend, if you're reading this, I'm gone, and you're in trouble. The world turns cold toward elders, toward veterans, toward stories that teach it how to live. I pray it never happens to you, but if it does, I give you a house. Enclosed, the deed to Morey Hall, my family's ancestral estate in the North Ridge. It's been empty for decades. It holds secrets, lovely and dark, but it's yours now. They cannot take it, the Morays pay their debts, and I owe you my life twice over. Find warmth in winter, old friend. Stefan. Elena looked up, a spark brightening her eyes. They can't take this. The North Ridge, she said, skeptical and hopeful. It's almost 3 hours north into the wilderness. The storm's exactly what we need, Thomas said, the old fire rekindling. Between us and them. Arlo loves snow, and we grew up in colder choices than this. They think we're helpless. Let's show them the generation raised on rationing and resilience. Elena smiled for the first time that day, a cautious curve of mouth drawn by courage. Thomas Brenner, are we running away? We're running toward something, he said. Toward a home that's ours. 3 days. We salvage what matters most, and then we disappear. For 72 hours, they moved like a covert team. Thomas withdrew their small savings as cash, enough to live modestly while they built a life. Elena sorted with the grace of a curator. Albums, her watercolor set, warm layers, Arlo's supplies, and the talismans of their love. Little things that held stories like a secret. At dawn on the 3rd day, Elena stood in the doorway. She touched the wall, the paint rubbed smooth by thousands of shoulders. They will be furious, she said. They chose fury when they called us burdens, Thomas answered. I never thought, Elena whispered. My children would discard me at the end of my life. This isn't the end, Thomas said. It's a beginning we didn't expect. Arlo trotted to them, leash in his mouth, tail wagging like a banner of loyalty. They left no note. What could words do after being shattered? They locked the door, slid the key under the mat for the agent, and drove into the winter. As they climbed north, flurries thickened into intention. By afternoon, the 2-lane road became a single plowed thread weaving through forests that held snow like a secret. Their phones went dead. GPS glitched and surrendered. Thomas unfolded the paper map. Tucked into Stefan's envelope, pen lines drawn like someone's memory turned into directions. Arlo barked sharply from the back seat. Elena leaned into the glass against a swirl of white. There, she said, pointing to a nearly invisible break in the pines. Thomas turned careful. After an eternity measured in snow and breath, the trees fell away and Moretti Hall stood in a circular clearing. Gothic, jaw-dropping, a photograph of a different century blown up into reality. The sky bruised overhead with storm. Oh, Thomas, Elena breathed. It looks like a novel. The iron gates were wrought into the Moretti crest, stylized M's swirling like a story beginning. Thomas stepped out, the cold knifing into his cheeks, snow biting his shins. He touched the gate, expecting chains. It swung inward, slow and resonant, a deep sound that felt like a welcome. Thomas froze, snow settling on his hair like a crown. Recognition rose, not fear, but a sense of being seen. He drove through, up the curved drive, to the massive oak doors bound with old iron. Elena leaned into him as they trudged knee-deep. Arlo bounded ahead. Old Dog renewed by white and possibility. The brass knocker, a lion's head, glinted with something like memory. Thomas lifted it, let it fall. The boom rolled through the house like a bell calling. They stepped into darkness. Thomas's flashlight laid down a path through dusk's quiet city. The foyer was grand, a staircase sweeping up into shadow, a chandelier draped in cobweb lace. The air was cold, but warmer than the storm. Do you smell it? Elena whispered. Wood smoke, Thomas said. The beam swinging toward an arch that opened into a great room. Arlo's nails clicked over marble, A heartbeat on stone. He disappeared, then barked. It sounded like relief. The great room held a fireplace large enough for a small conversation to crouch inside. In the hearth, the faintest embers glowed, like someone had left their heat as a gift. Elena looked at Thomas, heart thumping in her throat. Someone's been here. That first night pressed them into survival and tenderness. Thomas coaxed the embers to life, fed them with split oak stacked neatly beside the hearth, wood dry and fresh. This was cut recently, Elena said, holding a piece with clean edges. So not just caretakers who forgot everything else. Or someone else seeking shelter, Thomas replied, eyeing the windows where the snow spun against glass like a dancer. Arlo moved with intent, nose deep into corners, pawing at some doors, ignoring others. It was strange, almost like he knew the layout, as if the halls whispered to him. Fire took. The room revealed its bones. Hand-carved panels, medallions in a coffered ceiling, tall windows draped in velvet shredded by time. Magnificent once, patient now. Roof's holding in this wing, Thomas said, running fingers along a side table. No watermarks, Elena nodded. This room feels preserved. This room feels preserved. Like someone meant it. With light pushing back the cold, they explored. The kitchen was cavernous, a staff kitchen from an era that loved to feast. Copper pots snored gently from ceiling racks. A black iron stove anchored the room. We boil water till we trust, Elena said, practical. But the taps work. The pantry gave them shelves stocked with preserved goods, labels faded but legible. Some of these might be good, Thomas said. Military-grade provisions, Stefan style. They found a dining room that could seat 20. A study buried in dust, and a music room with a grand piano that looked like it could still break hearts. Some doors swelled with time and refused. Others opened easily, like the house was choosing. It's almost like Arlo knows, Elena whispered as the dog led them up the main staircase. The halls creaked underfoot, whispers of water damage in far wings, and dangerous soft spots in old floors. At the end of the east wing, Arlo stopped, paw on a door. Thomas pushed it open. The master suite waited, astonishing and intact, a room preserved by intention or love. Here, Thomas said, safe, dry. Elena eased back the drape. Outside winter went wild. We're truly alone, she said softly. Invisible, that's the point, Thomas replied. Though I admit, this gothic sweep is more drama than I expected. Elena laughed, fatigue and delight in the sound. It's like living in a book. Let's choose the kind that ends in light. They shook bedding, swept decades of dust, layered their sleeping bags over the ancient mattress, lit a small bedroom hearth, and invited Arlo to sleep at their feet, guardian. Elena gasped, pointing to the wall opposite the bed. Thomas looked. A portrait emerged under firelight. A man in his 30s, mid-century attire holding a child. The man's face turned half to light, kind and solemn, familiar. My God, Thomas whispered. He could be me. Or Stefan Young. Stefan, Elena said, studying. You met in the mountains. Studying. You met in the mountain. That suits the era, Thomas frowned. He never told me about a child. He told you little about family, remember, Elena reminded him gently. Tomorrow, she said, patting his hand. We solve mysteries tomorrow. Tonight, we accept shelter. They lay in bed, the house adjusting around them, settling into their breaths. Just as sleep tugged at Thomas, he thought he heard. It was ridiculous. The faint sound of piano notes, he dismissed it. Arlo's ears rose, then relaxed. Morning arrived with a cough Elena couldn't tame. Dust and cold went to war against her lungs. Thomas helped her sit up. Inhaler in the car, Elena wheezed. I forgot. Thomas ran into snow so bright it hurt. Doug opened the car door like a stubborn possibility, grabbed the medication bag, sprinted back. Elena's lips were tinged with blue. Fear bit. Oxygen, he said. Basement, Elena rasped. What, Arlo? She whispered. Show him. Arlo led Thomas down into a corridor they'd ignored the night before. Down narrow stairs into a basement that smelled like earth and stone. The flashlight revealed order where decay should have been. Metal shelves lined with supplies, food, water, first aid, blankets, and absurd, incredible medical equipment, including an oxygen tank from a strange middle 20th century. How did she know? Thomas murmured. Arlo whined, nosing at a cabinet. Thomas opened it. Antibiotics, painkillers labeled meds, military quality, and most were within expiration. Someone had stocked the place in the last decade. He brought oxygen upstairs, fitted the mask with hands that shook so slightly, he made sure Elena didn't notice. Her breathing smoothed, steadied, remained fragile, but possible. How did you know? He asked when the mask came off. I didn't, she said, astonished but accepting. It was like a memory, but not mine. Does that make sense? Thomas stared at the bedroom doorway. This place, Stefan said it had secrets, she whispered. Maybe it looks after those who need it. Maybe the house knows. Thomas thought of all the things that had formed him. Boot camp, mountain winters, the lost, the kept. He was not fanciful, but some truths enter through the back door. We rest, he said. We face the day and the place. In stages, he carried wood. He cleaned the stove with old-world care. He simmered soup that tasted like safety. Elena drifted between sleep and simple tasks, her strength returning in measured degree. By evening, she sat in a high-backed chair near the fire, eyes reflecting light. Under all this, she said softly, it's beautiful. It could be again, Thomas replied. The bones are good. Are you thinking of renovating? She asked, amused. Got to keep busy, he said. And our calendar's wide open. Elena laughed, a sound steeped in dark comedy and relief. What do you think they did when we didn't show up? Called the police, Thomas said. Filed missing persons, but they won't find us. This property isn't in our name. Stefan transferred it privately. Lila stood with her back to the fire, eyes scanning the room with the quick precision of someone who has learned to assess safety and opportunity in equal measure. You've been cleaning, she observed. You know this place? Thomas asked. I've been living in the groundskeeper's cottage, she said. About a mile through the woods. Good walls. I saw your lights. I came to see who moved in. Where are your parents? Elena asked. Voice maternal but steady. Lila's expression trembled. The shudder of someone holding herself up. Not in the picture. I've been on my own a while. You knew Maria? And Antonio? Thomas asked, thinking of letters. They let me stay, Lila said. Said I could be useful. I chopped wood. I did odd jobs. Maria taught me to paint. She hesitated. They were good, were? Elena said softly. They died 3 months ago, Lila said. First snow. Car accident on the Ridge Road. They went for supplies. Didn't come back. The fire popped, and the silence held its breath around grief. Have you been alone all this time? Elena asked, tears gentle but contained. I'm used to it, Lila answered. You must be hungry, Elena said, old skills turning into new kindness. When was your last proper meal? I hunt, Lila said. Fish when the stream isn't glass. Maria's pantry had supplies. Sit, Elena ordered gently. I'll make you something warm. Thomas watched Elena move toward the kitchen like a memory remade into action. He turned back and found Lila studying him. You look like the man in the painting, she said. Stefan, Thomas replied. So I've been told. Maria said he was family. Lila continued. A great uncle. She said the house was waiting for someone worthy. Are you worthy? I don't know, Thomas said, and the admission tasted true. We came because we had nowhere else to go. Our children. His voice stumbled over the word. Families can betray. He was surprised he'd said it so quickly to a stranger. Then again, maybe not a stranger. Antonio said that, Lila murmured. Families can be the cruelest. You're very wise, Thomas said, already liking the strength under her guardedness. Necessity, she said simply. Elena returned with soup and fresh bread the pantry had allowed. Lila ate like someone grateful enough to taste each flavor, but hungry enough to keep pace with time. Where were you going? Elena asked gently. You weren't going to stay alone in that cottage all winter. Why not? Lila replied, not defiance so much as fact. Because you're a child, Thomas said. Something flashed through Lila. Defiance, fear. Loneliness so deep even its shadow seemed tired. I'm not your problem. You're not a problem, Elena said firmly. You're a young person dealt a difficult hand. Perhaps we help each other. How? Stay here, Elena suggested. Show us the house. Help us restore it. We offer food, warmth, safety. In return, you belong. Why would you do that? Thomas leaned forward. Because when you've been thrown away by those who were meant to hold you, they didn't just call us burdens, they sold our lives. You recognize the same wound in others. Lila looked away quickly, but Thomas saw it. The shine of tears she would not let fall. Arlo chose that moment to place his head on her knee, proving once more that dogs hear what human tongues won't say. Lila placed a hand on him. He leaned into her. He remembers you, Elena said gently. He remembers everyone who belongs, Lila replied. I can show you where the leaks are worst. The West Wing is trouble. That would help, Elena said. You'll stay. That night Arlo slept outside Lila's door on the hall floor, an old soldier's posture softened by loyalty. Thomas and Elena lay in their bed and whispered. She's been abandoned, Elena said. She's just a child, Thomas replied. We don't know her story. If anyone is searching, they aren't. Elena said, a knowledge that comes from some shared language of pain. We help her, she helps us. Maybe the house sent her. The house, Thomas asked. But he didn't sound skeptical, just interested in how love chooses its messengers. The next morning, Lila led like a guide. This floorboard's echo means trouble, she said in the west corridor. In that darker section, that's water damage. Avoid it. Thomas mapped repairs with gratitude for the competence youth can carry when survival demands it. Lila stayed guarded, but softened by degrees. Lingering over lunch, asking Elena about galleries and curation, watching Thomas repair a window sash like someone learning a language she could use. On the fourth day, Elena set up a painting space in the library. When Lila found the half-finished winter watercolor of Moretti Hall, she stopped. You're using Maria's paints, she said. Elena set down the brush. I'm sorry, I didn't realize. No, Lila interrupted softly. She wanted things used. Art asked to live. Lila studied Elena's painting with care. Your perspective is good, she said kindly. But you're too gentle with shadows. This hall isn't fragile. It's powerful, even in decay. Show me, Elena said. Lila took the brush. Her strokes deepened the eave shadows, textured the stone, and brought a brooding life to the structure. It's watching you, she said, not just being watched. You have a gift, Elena said, warmed. Did Maria teach you? Some, Lila admitted, but I drew before I met her. Art was an exit door when the room filled with smoke. Art saved me too, Elena said, eyes far away. When my first pregnancy ended in stillbirth before Ava, painting kept me from drowning. Lila looked at her sharply. Pain recognizes pain and respects the courage to name it. January deepened. The mansion changed under care. Thomas repaired windows, sealed drafts, coaxed a second fireplace to life in the library. Elena cleaned, arranged, made rooms livable. Lila found beauty in lost objects. The way a bowl and a book and an old glass bottle formed a constellation when placed in a corner that held afternoon light. They built routines, mornings for repairs, cleaning, cooking, afternoons for painting and reading in the library, evenings for shared meals and slowly braver conversations. The house responded, secrets opening like a flower in winter. Behind a bookshelf, a staircase up to a tower observatory with a telescope still pointed at Orion. In the music room, a panel concealing handwritten scores, generations of Moretti hands practicing grief and joy. Below the medical shelves, a wine cellar with bottles that smelled like the 1920s. One day when snow trapped them for 3 days straight, and cabin fever muttered under the door, Arlo pawed at a specific bookshelf rosette. Thomas pressed. It clicked. The shelf swung inward. A narrow stair descended. They climbed down, flashlights like small moons. They entered a bunker archive. Metal filing cabinets ran along one wall. A large table anchored the room. In the corner, weapons, rifles, shotguns, military-grade equipment, kept under oil and slow devotion. Maps covered walls. Communication gear from different eras. A film projector. What is this? Elena whispered. Stefan's war room, Thomas said, opening a cabinet labeled by year, 1942 to early 2000s. He called it family business. Outsiders call it organized crime. He never told me much. I never asked. Lila found a metal trunk. Look, she said, lifting reels. One canister was labeled. To the one who stayed loyal, Thomas swallowed. That's me, he said softly. Stefan said I never betrayed him. Never asked for anything. He threaded the projector like a soldier turned projectionist. The bulb warmed. The wall became an old friend. Stefan Moretti, older than in the portrait, sat behind a desk like the upstairs study. The date stamped, 3 months before his death. Thomas, recorded, Stefan said. His voice a bomb made of regret and hope. If you're watching this, you found Moretti Hall, and the house finds you worthy. Elena's breath slipped. Lila stood very still. We were young men in a war neither of us understood, Stefan continued. You saved me from enemy fire. Then later, from my own demons. You never asked questions about the business. You never judged. You didn't want advantage. In a life where loyalty was currency, yours was gold. Photos flashed. Young Thomas and Stefan in uniform, cigarettes hanging, arms around shoulders, smiles tired but alive. After, Stefan said, "My family asked me to step into the organization. The mafia, if you insist. I did as expected. I made money. Enemies. I lost parts of my soul. You asked me to leave, to testify. You said I was better than my inheritance. You were right. But I was trapped by blood." Thomas nodded unconsciously. The memory still burned. "What you didn't know," Stefan continued, "was that I had a son." The projector showed the portrait upstairs. Stefan young, holding a child. His mother wasn't from our world. She wanted no part of the Moretti legacy. I honored that. I gave them a new identity, support from a distance. I visited when I could. Stefan leaned toward the camera. "Blood isn't the point, Thomas. Choice is. Loyalty is. Who stays when the world turns to winter?" The film detailed how Stefan, slow but stubborn, extricated himself from the family shadow and rooted Moretti Hall as sanctuary. Fortified not just against cold, but against cruelty. "I leave this house to you," Stefan said, eyes softening. "Because you know what matters. Not wealth, not power. Warmth, protection for the vulnerable, second chances." "Moretti Hall stands," he said. "It housed horror and beauty both. Saints and sinners. It responds to worthiness, not wealth. Kindness, not cruelty. That's why the deed is unbreakable. The property can never be sold. It passes only to someone deemed worthy by its keeper." His final words lingered long after the film ticked off the end. Find warmth in the cold, and share it with those left in winter. They sat in the murmur of the projector cooling. Leila spoke first. "Maria was his granddaughter," she said. "That's why she knew the place. Why she and Antonio came when they could." Thomas nodded. "She recognized you," he said to Lila. "As Stefan saw me." Elena wiped tears delicately. "He built this for us, and for whoever needs it next." "No," Thomas said gently. "He maintained it for the worthy. We are just current keepers." They climbed back to the library. The house exhaled, a sound like relief. 3 days later, the fragile peace shattered. Arlo barked, a sharp note that meant intrusion. Thomas came up from the basement. Elena stood at the window, pale. "A car," she whispered. At the gates, a black SUV. Thomas's spine went tight. "How did they find us?" Elena bit her lip. "The deed confirmation. Right before we left. I forwarded it to my sister's address so it wouldn't be lost. They must have pressed her." 3 figures emerged into the cold. Lucas, Ava, Noah. They trudged. Thomas's first instinct was to bar every door. Instead, he squared his shoulders. "Let them come," he said. "This is our home. We have nothing to hide." "Should I stay out of sight?" Leila asked from the hallway. "No," Elena said softly. "You are ours now. But wait in the library at first." The knock was Lucas's, measured sharp, like everything about him. Thomas opened the door with deliberate calm. "Dad," Lucas began, "you scared us. We had search teams." "How kind," Thomas said, "considering you sold our lives." "This isn't a game," Eva said, looking past Thomas. Her jaw tightened at the mansion's shock. "What is this?" "How an old friend left it," Thomas said. "We live here now." Noah's expression cracked, more open, less armored. "Mom, are you okay?" Elena stepped into light and warmth. "Better than I was last week," she said. "Here I can breathe." "You can't stay," Ava protested. "There's no hospital." "There's no hospital." "No support." "No? May we come in?" Lucas asked, looking at stories and seeing assets. Thomas hesitated, then moved as guests, he said. Not as authorities. They stepped into a world that held them at arm's length. Lucas's eyes lit with calculation. "This property must be worth millions," he murmured. "The land alone. The house is not for sale," Thomas said. "It cannot be sold. It can only be passed to someone worthy." "Worthy?" Ava scoffed. "Who decides of the house?" Elena said. "And its keeper." "Mom, Dad," Noah said, fragile. "We know we hurt you. But this isn't safe. What if?" "We have supplies, a generator and medicine," Thomas answered. "The house has stood for worse." "We can find a different residence," Lucas said. "More independent." "This place isn't practical." "You mean it isn't controllable?" Thomas replied. Footsteps. Lila entered carrying a tray with tea. Arlo stalked beside her. Calm but watchful. Who is this? Ava asked, suspicion sharpened like a scalpel. This is Lila, Elena said. She's helping us restore the mansion. A random teenager, Eva said. Where are her guardians? How do you know she isn't exploiting you? Lila stiffened. The tray rattled. Leela is part of our household, Thomas said. Kindly adjust your worldview. Noah shook his head. You adopted a stray and fled to a crumbling estate. He searched his father. Do you see how this looks? It looks, Elena said evenly, like children disposing of their parents because they're inconvenient. Ava stood, face flushed. We should call for evaluation. On what grounds? Thomas asked. We are competent adults living in a property legally deeded to me. You abandoned your house, Lucas said. A house you sold, Elena answered. Voices rose. Old resentments leaked into the room. Peter Analog is Noah here. We must keep names consistent. Keep going. Lucas admitted the truth first, surprising even himself. This land could be worth millions, he said, barely disguising greed as prudence. You're worried about inheritance, Lila said suddenly. Not your parents. Three faces turned. Rage, shame, shock. Stay out of this, Ava snapped. Family matter? They are my family, Layla said. They chose me when nobody else did. They're building this place by hand because they see potential, not profit. Thomas placed a hand on Leela's shoulder. It's enough. They're leaving. We most certainly are not, Lucas declared, but he never got to lay down his next card. Elena gasped, sharp and sudden, as if a hand had closed around her chest. Her teacup shattered on stone. She stumbled forward. Thomas caught her. Elena! Ava! Thomas shouted. You're a physician. Help. Ava's training overtook outrage. She checked pulse, breathing. Cardiac event, she said grimly. We need a hospital. Storm, Noah said, pointing toward the window where snow thickened into danger. Roads. Oxygen, Thomas said. Adrenaline crisp. Basement. Lila, show her. Oxygen stabilized Elena. Barely. Ava administered what she had. Lucas tried his satellite phone and discovered nature's indifference to technology. Ambulance. An hour away if it fought the road and won. Night fell. The storm howled. The house held them in place. Elena lay in the bedroom with oxygen softening the jagged edges of breath. Ava monitored her with a rare silence. Thomas sat beside her. Arlo didn't move from the foot of the bed. Downstairs, Lucas and Noah huddled near the fire, their earlier calculations burned away by fear. They saw a pantry's bounty. They touched a generator that worked. They felt the medicine cabinet Leela had shown them. Near midnight, Ava came out, her face shadowed. She's stable for now, she said, but it was significant. If we can't get her to a hospital by morning. The sentence didn't need finishing. Lila kept fires fed. She made coffee for the exhausted. She took a cup up to Thomas. He held Elena's hand, the thumb tracing their wedding band, not for comfort but continuity. Thank you, he whispered, accepting the cup. Rest, Lila. The house won't let her go easily, Lila said. Neither will Arlo. Thomas looked at Lila's young eyes carrying older grief. He wanted to ask what she meant, but exhaustion and love sometimes ask you to simply hold on. In the hours before dawn, Elena woke briefly, eyes finding Thomas like a prayer that knows its words. Thomas, she whispered. He leaned close. I'm here. Her mouth almost smiled. Don't let them make you cold, she murmured. Stay warm, Tommy. That's how we win. Her fingers tightened, remembering, then softened, releasing. Outside, the wind stilled, the storm let go. In the silence that followed, Arlo raised his head and howled, long, low mourning echoing through Moretti Hall's bones. Elena Brenner had come here to live, and now she had come here to rest. Days blurred. The roads cleared enough for an ambulance, but it was too late for anything but signatures and gentle strangers. Elena, always prepared, had asked to be cremated. The children stayed, purpose dissolved by grief. They moved through Moretti Hall like they were seeing for the first time. Like a place can teach you who someone was when you weren't looking. Thomas barely spoke. He sat in the great room and stared at fire. The house felt colder, though they kept the flames fed. Leela kept the household breathing. She cooked the simple meals grief requires. She tended the fires. She checked repairs. When Ava offered to chop vegetables, Lila nodded. When Noah dragged in wood, Lila thanked him. Lucas made trips into town, arranging cremation, collecting documents. He returned one afternoon, urn in hand, and found Thomas in the library, staring at an unfinished watercolor. The only spring his wife would see now, Moretti Hall reborn in green and light. The painting felt like a vow. "Dad," Lucas said softly, "I brought Mom home." Thomas nodded. "She knew she wouldn't see spring," he said, his first words in days. "She imagined it. She always saw beauty before it arrived." "I'm sorry," Lucas said. "We thought we were doing what's best." "She forgave you," Thomas said, eyes on the painting. At the end, she couldn't hold a grudge. "Not even if it would have saved her an ounce of pain." He paused. "And me, forgiving you, it's a process. She asked me to stay warm, not cold. In here," he touched his chest. "Not just the house. We've been talking," Lucas said. "Ava, Noah, me, we want to help with the house, if you'll let us. Not to take over, to make amends, because she loved this place, because we can see what you saw. Potential." Thomas considered his son's face. "It won't be easy," he said. "Hard work, cold, frustration." Lucas nodded. "We want to try." Over the next 2 weeks, weekend after weekend, they returned, arms full of supplies, tools, and apologies. Ava cataloged medications and replaced anything suspicious. Noah attacked the plumbing and old wiring with a grin that looked younger than it had in years. Lucas drew up a plan for long-term upkeep to ensure Moretti Hall's future. Thomas moved through the days like a man waking slowly. He repaired window latches. He sanded a banister. Sometimes he stopped, head bowed, eyes closed. Sometimes Lila stood nearby, not saying "Are you okay?" but saying it by not leaving. One evening, after the others had fallen asleep, Leila approached the fire. "I've been thinking," she said, tentative. "Maybe I should move back to the cottage. Your kids are here, my presence complicates." "Stop," Thomas said. "This isn't about need, it never was." "Your kids don't want a random teenager living with their father," Lila murmured. My kids don't decide this," Thomas said gently but firmly. "I do. And Elena," he swallowed. "She'd haunt me if I let you walk back into lonely." Lila's mouth lifted. "She probably would." "Sit," Thomas said, gesturing to the chair then. "Stefan's film said the house passes to those deemed worthy. That includes you, Lila." He glanced toward the stairwell that led to a heart of paper and wood and warm light. "You were here before us. You might be here after." "That sounds wild. I would have said the same before the gates opened like an embrace. Before embers burned for us. Before Arlo led me to oxygen in a basement that felt like deja vu. I've given up needing to explain everything. I know that you belong." Lila blinked rapidly, eyes glossy. "I'm not family," she said, but it sounded like a question. "Aren't you?" Lila looked away, then back, then away again. "I miss her," she said simply. "So do I," Thomas answered, and his eyes honored that truth quietly. The next Saturday, Noah returned with Sophia and their son Emil, a bright-eyed 10-year-old who had built 3 snow forts in 4 weeks and considered himself an architect. "We wanted to see the place Mom chose," Sophia said, and Emil wanted to meet Arlo, the mansion dog. Emil approached Arlo with reverence and a small handful of treats Lila approved of. Arlo tolerated the boy's excitement with dignified patience. "He's the best dog," Emil declared. "Does he know tricks?" "Not tricks," Lila said. "But he knows what matters." "Like what?" "Like which rooms are safe, which people need watching, where things hide." "Can he find treasure?" Emil asked, eyes huge. "There might be," Lila said. "Want to explore?" They disappeared, child joy spilling down the hallway. Sophia watched. "Noah told me everything," she said to Thomas, "about the residence plan. I didn't know until after you were gone. I wouldn't have supported it. It's past," Thomas said. "That girl," Sophia said. "Lila, she's good for this house. And for you, she knows Moretti Hall better than any of us," Thomas said. "She's teaching us this place." "She's young," Sophia said, concern tucked into love. "Being alone, we're working on making that less true," Thomas answered. The expanded household worked, clearing debris from the west wing, cataloging paintings found in a locked storage room, replacing cracked window panes. Thomas found himself moving between groups with quiet guidance. The fog remained, but sunlight cut through sometimes. Late afternoon, he found Lila and Emil in the hidden bunker. Emil traced maps with a finger, whispering the names. "This was a superhero base," Emil declared. "Something like that," Lila said. "Like Grandpa in the war?" Emil asked, turning to Thomas, who had entered like a shadow. "Grandpa." It settled something inside Thomas, a title like a hand placed over his heart. Yes, he said. And no. Might you like a story? Emil nodded. Thomas told it. An edited story about friendship, promises, and a house that waited. Dinner that evening gathered them all, each contributing. Ava's roast chicken, Noah's garlic bread, Leela's vegetable soup, and a cake Sophia bought in town because some honors deserve sugar. Lucas raised a glass. To Mom, he said. To Grandma, Emil added solemnly with milk. Later, Thomas stood on the veranda under cold stars. The snow-covered world looked like a new beginning. Leela came to the railing. They're different than I expected, she said. Your kids. Grief changes people. Not always kindly, but sometimes it opens them. Will they move in, she asked. No, Thomas said. They have their lives. They'll come, they'll help. Does that reassure or disappoint? Thomas asked her. Both, Lila said honestly. It's nice, this noise. But also, for a while it was just us. You, me, Arlo, Thomas said. Our little band of strays. Lila smiled. I finished something, she said, reaching into her coat. She unwrapped a small cloth bundle and placed a bronze plaque in Thomas's hand. Engraved simply, you kept us warm. Lila, Thomas began, then stopped throat tight. I asked Noah to take me to town while you rested, she said quickly. There's a jeweler who engraves. I used some of the money Maria left me. She hesitated. Thomas stood in doorways that reminded him of a uniform and made his heart gentle. Noah and Emil built birdhouses and installed them along the edge of the wood where the air smells like origins. Emil asked 1,000 questions. Noah answered 900. Lila painted tiny doors on the birdhouses in colors that looked like hope. Sophia and Lila planted a row of herb beds along the kitchen's south wall, hands black with soil, laughter shaking out some of the sadness. Do you think she'd approve? Sophia asked. She'd insist you add mint, Leila said. For summer tea, Thomas made a decision one evening under a sky that felt close. I want to bring Elena home, he told the household, not just in memory. I want to scatter some of her ashes near the bench, and some on the observatory. They met by the bench. The plaque warmed under late spring sun. Thomas held the urn as if it was both anchor and sail. He didn't give a speech. He told a story in the way Elena loved, simple, luminous, anchored in particular details. He talked about the day they painted the kitchen door the wrong color and decided the door liked it. He talked about the way she labeled photographs like she was naming stars. He said her name like the word home. He scattered ashes. He stood quietly with his hand on the plaque. Lila put hers beside his, not to hold him, just to say here. Later, in the observatory, Thomas opened the window and let the mountain breeze carry Elena into the sky she loved. The telescope sat lined up with a constellation that looked like a path. That night, he dreamed of the mansion and woke to find he'd been right. The house was changing under their hands and will. The front door groaned less. The library smelled happy. The kitchen stove laughed with heat that was easier to coax. One afternoon, a knock came, not sharp and entitled, just hopeful. At the door stood a young couple in their early 20s, holding hands like a lifeline. We're sorry to bother you, the woman said. We heard someone said Morty Hall helps. Thomas studied them. The house felt listening. Arlo stepped forward, sniffed, wagged once, decisively. Lila came to the door and looked at their faces, reading things not written in any book. Come in, Thomas said. They moved through the spring light as if it were borrowed, but then it became theirs. Over weeks, the couple helped catalog, repaired small things, learned from Noah how to coax old wiring into safe compliance. They told stories in exchange for shelter, sharing what it means to stay warm when the world prefers you cold. Moretti Hall began opening more rooms. Sometimes Lila said quietly, half to herself, half to Elena, you chose this well. Life layered itself with grief and grace like paint on stone. Miraculously transparent in the right light, Sophia found Lila in the library one morning. Lila stood at the long table, hands braced, head bent, tears dripping onto the wood. I don't know where I belong after this, she admitted. Where I go if I should go. Sophia wrapped an arm around her shoulders gently. Like a mother who knows that you can't fix certain things, you can only hold. Here, Sophia said simply. Thomas will need someone to remind him to eat, Lila said, wiping her face with the sleeve of an old sweater and laughing messily. And Arlo needs someone to throw sticks. And I think the house, I think it wants me, it does, Sophia said. And we do. Lila nodded, and an invisible weight shifted. As summer edged into the hills, the house felt less like a fortress and more like a sanctuary that had found its voice. Locals came to offer help. Some brought nails, some brought stories. A retired carpenter named Andreas taught Lila how to use a plane on old floorboards. He said, "You can hear when it's right," and Lila thought of Elena whispering, "Listen." The birds nested and raised babies. The herb beds went feral with happy mint. Eva motivated Lucas to arrange a small community potluck. People set dishes on the long table as if laying down their hearts. Through it all, Thomas moved through rooms like someone entrusted with a living thing rather than owning a dead one. He found the letter Elena once wrote him first year of marriage, tucked in a cookbook. He read it to Arlo with a ridiculous but necessary solemnity. Arlo sighed as if he approved. In late summer, Noah discovered a small lockbox behind an old radiator in the music room. Inside, a handful of photographs. The Moretti family on the steps of the house in 1954. Stefan as a young boy with his mother. Maria's grandmother holding sheet music like a flag. There was a note for the keeper. No name, just faith that someone would understand. They did. One evening, Thomas and Lila sat on the veranda, watching a storm gather and decide to go somewhere else. It felt like mercy. "I keep thinking about Elena's last words," Thomas said. "Stay warm," Lila nodded. "It's a way to live," she said. "And a way to honor." Thomas looked at her. "What we build here," he said, "will be her answer to all the cold in the world." "It already is," Lila said softly. They went inside. Arlo led the way. In autumn, leaves ricocheted off memory. The house did what houses do when loved. It glowed. Lila's paintings lined the library wall above a shelf of poetry. Eva's clinical calm had softened into grace. Lucas's spreadsheets had turned into generosity. Noah built a small workshop in the carriage house, turning out birdhouses as if their town was now a haven for feathers. Sophia taught Emil to bake bread on Saturdays, and the smell transformed the kitchen into a holiday even on ordinary days. Thomas hung Elena's spring watercolor in the great room, centered and high enough to feel like a blessing rather than a memorial. People looked up at it and softened. Stefan's film stayed ready in the war room. Sometimes Thomas played the last minute just to hear that line again. Find warmth in the cold. He believed now that the house didn't just choose its people. It taught them. It was a stern tutor and a generous host. It demanded work and offered reward. It asked for courage and gave fellowship. It grieved with you. It laughed occasionally when a cupboard refused to open until you told it a joke. It responded to worthiness, not wealth. Kindness, not control. The Moretti Hall welcomed winter at last, another. But this time, winter stood outside the door and asked permission. Inside, they were ready. They were warm. And sometimes, very late at night, when Lila stood silent in the library, she heard the piano, soft, patient, like someone playing for love. She smiled, whispered, "Thank you," to no one and everyone, then blew out the lamp. Outside, snow began again, but it seemed more like a blanket than a threat. A house kept its promise. A woman's final request became a way of life. A girl without family found family. Children who had traded compassion for control learned how to choose differently, and kept choosing. And an old soldier sat by a roaring fire, a dog beside him, a watercolor above, warming the room and the people in the story. They stayed warm, and that is how they won. If this story stirred you, subscribe to Stories Untold for more soul-deep narratives. Like, share, and leave a comment with the moment that hit you hardest. Let's keep each other warm.